In the winter of 2003, I found myself in the sprawling, fog-enshrouded landscapes of rural Scotland, far from the sunlit streets of my native Rome, where I was born and raised. My name is Lucia, and at the time, I was 27 years old, a freelance photographer with a passion for capturing the hidden beauties of forgotten places. My journey to Scotland was motivated by stories of ancient castles and untamed nature. But what I discovered was something far beyond the realm of the picturesque. I had rented a small, rustic cottage near the ruins of a castle said to be haunted, a fact that intrigued me rather than deterred. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, sharing tales of strange lights and eerie sounds that emanated from its depths at night. Armed with my camera and a boundless curiosity, I ventured into the ruins one chilly afternoon, the gray skies above mirroring the cold stones beneath my feet. As I explored the crumbling halls and shadowy archways, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if the ancient stones themselves had eyes, observing my every move with an intensity that was unnerving. Brushing it off as the product of my imagination, fueled by the ghost stories I'd heard, I pressed on, determined to capture the essence of this place. It wasn't until I returned to the cottage and began to review the photos. I'd taken that I realized something was terribly wrong. In every frame that depicted the darkest corners of the castle, there appeared to be a faint outline of a figure, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to move closer with each successive shot. I was sure no one else had been there, for the silence of the ruins was absolute, save for the occasional whisper of the wind. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind replaying the images over and over, each time more certain that what I had captured was not of this world. The climax of my terror came in the early hours of the morning, when I awoke to the sound of my own name being whispered, not through my window by the wind, but inside the cottage. Close. Too close. Paralyzed with fear, I lay there, listening as the whispers grew louder, more insistent, until suddenly, silence. I mustered the courage to turn on the light, half expecting to see a figure standing in my room, but there was nothing. The cottage was exactly as I had left it, yet the air felt colder, charged with an unseen presence. I left Scotland the next day, my photographs and the memories they contained, the only proof of my encounter. I've never been able to explain what happened in that cottage, or what I saw in those photos. Some things, I've come to believe, are beyond the realm of understanding, residing in the shadows of ancient places, waiting for the curious and the brave. Now, years later, the fear has dulled, but it has never truly left me. I've continued my travels, my photography, but with a newfound respect for the stories and legends of old. For in the quiet corners of Europe, hidden in the mists and the ancient stones, there are secrets that do not wish to be found. I'm Alex, a 32-year-old software engineer from Berlin, Germany. My tale unfolds not in the bustling cityscapes of modern technology, but within the secluded, timeless villages of the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. It was during the late autumn of 2019, a season when the leaves whisper tales of old and the air chills with the breath of approaching winter, that my curiosity led me into a realm of untold fear. I had taken a sabbatical from work, driven by a thirst for adventure and the stories my Romanian grandmother told me as a child, tales of legends and folklore that seemed too fantastical to be true. With a desire to capture the essence of these stories through my photography, I ventured into the heart of Transylvania, seeking the shadows of the past. The village I arrived in was like stepping back in time, nestled in a valley, shrouded in mist, and surrounded by foreboding forests. It was as if the modern world had forgotten this place, or perhaps it was the other way around. The locals were wary but hospitable, offering warnings alongside their welcome, cautioning me against wandering the woods at night and speaking of a darkness that lingered in the land. Driven by a blend of skepticism and intrigue, I dismissed their warnings as superstitions, a decision I would come to regret. My days were spent exploring the surroundings, capturing images of decrepit castles, ancient forests, and the stark, haunting beauty of the landscape. Yet, as the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed, of eyes watching me from the depths of the woods. On my final night, determined to dispel the myths once and for all, I ventured into the forest with my camera and flashlight, aiming to capture the so-called spirits that haunted the villagers' tales. The deeper I went, the more the forest seemed to close in around me, the silence punctuated only by my footsteps and the occasional distant howl of a wolf. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement in the shadows, too swift to be caught by my camera, too silent to be just an animal. My heart raced as the forest seemed to come alive around me, whispers filling the air. Not in the wind, but in a language I couldn't understand, echoing with a hunger that chilled me to my core. In a panic, I ran, not stopping until I burst from the tree line and into the village, where I was met with the knowing, pitiful looks of the locals. They found me the next morning on the doorstep of the inn, unconscious, my camera lying beside me. The photographs I reviewed later showed nothing but the dark, dense forest, except for the last one. There, amidst the trees, was a figure, barely discernible, with eyes that seemed to glow with an unearthly light, staring directly into the lens, into me. I left Romania with more than just photographs. I carried with me a deep, unshakable belief in the tales my grandmother told, a respect for the warnings of the villagers, and a fear of the darkness that dwells in untouched places. The Carpathian Mountains hold secrets that are not meant for the eyes of the outside world, and some shadows are best left unexplored. My name is Elena, a 26-year-old writer from a small, nondescript town in northern Italy. My life was unremarkable in its tranquility until the winter of 2017, when I decided to spend a month in an isolated cabin in the snowy reaches of Norway, hoping the solitude would stir the stagnant waters of my creativity. The cabin was a picturesque hideaway, nestled between the embrace of gnarled pines and the silent expanse of a frozen lake, a place where whispers of the past seemed to mingle with the cold winter air. For the first few days, my only companions were the words I poured onto paper, the crackling of the fire, and the occasional visit from a curious deer or a family of rabbits. However, it wasn't long before a sense of unease began to seep into the fabric of my solitude. It started with the footprints, fresh and clear in the snow each morning, encircling the cabin, yet belonging to no visitor I could recall. I told myself they were from an animal, perhaps, despite the unmistakably human shape. Then came the night when the silence of the woods was shattered by the sound of a child's laughter, eerie and out of place amidst the desolate winter landscape. I searched the darkness from my window, but saw nothing beyond the reach of the cabin's lights. The laughter continued, night after night, always distant, always unsettlingly joyful. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, I decided to follow the laughter one moonlit night, trudging through the deep snow, my breath forming clouds of mist in the freezing air. The laughter seemed to dance on the wind, leading me deeper into the woods, always just out of reach, until I found myself standing before an old, abandoned church, its spire like a finger pointing accusingly at the sky. The laughter had stopped, replaced by the sound of soft, somber singing coming from within the church. The door was ajar, swinging gently in the breeze, as if inviting me in. Against every instinct, screaming inside me to flee, I stepped inside. The interior was bathed in the pale light of the moon, filtering through the broken stained glass windows, casting colorful shadows on the snow that had drifted in. The singing had stopped, and the silence that followed was suffocating. Then, as my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw them, figures seated in the pews, their heads bowed, clothed in the tatters of another age. Frozen in horror, I watched as one by one, they raised their heads to look at me, their faces pale and eyes empty, like windows to nothingness. A scream died in my throat as the door slammed shut behind me, plunging the church into darkness. I don't remember how I made it back to the cabin, my memory a blur of terror and desperation. By morning, I was on the first train back to Italy, the haunting images of that night etched into my mind. The locals, I later learned, spoke of the church as a place cursed by tragedy, a congregation lost to time and a winter so cruel it claimed the lives of those who sought solace within its walls. They said the laughter was the echo of the past, of lives cut short, seeking the warmth of the living. I never returned to Norway, nor did I seek the solitude of isolated places again. The words I sought in that silence found me, but they were not my own. They were whispers of the past, a reminder that some places hold memories and some memories refuse to be forgotten. I'm Thomas, a 29-year-old historian with a penchant for the forgotten corners of Eastern Europe. My story takes you to a small village in Slovakia, lost to time and modern maps during the bleak winter of 2016. It was here, amidst the snow-laden forests and centuries-old traditions, that I encountered something that defied explanation and left me questioning the fabric of reality. The village, named Hukvaldi, was rumored to be the site of ancient rituals and unexplained phenomena, drawing me with the promise of untold stories for my research. The locals, a tight-knit community of weathered faces and cautious eyes, spoke in hushed tones about the night whisperers, spirits of the forest, that communicated with the living after sundown. My skepticism was my shield as I settled into the rustic accommodation provided by an elderly couple who regarded me with a curious mixture of hospitality and wariness. They warned me, as had become the custom since my arrival, not to venture into the forest at night, for those who did often returned changed, if they returned at all. Driven by a mix of academic fervor and the arrogance of disbelief, I ventured into the forest as twilight bled into darkness, armed with a flashlight and a voice recorder, hoping to capture any natural sounds that could be misconstrued as supernatural. The forest was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures, but as I ventured deeper, a heavy silence began to settle, as if the very woods were holding their breath. It wasn't long before the first whispers reached my ears. Soft, indistinct at first, they grew in clarity, morphing into discernible words in a language I couldn't recognize. The temperature seemed to drop with each step I took towards the source of the whispers, my breath forming thick clouds in the freezing air. The whispers guided me to a clearing where the moonlight filtered through the bare branches, illuminating a stone circle that had not been marked on any map I had consulted. The air around it vibrated with an energy that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The ground inside the circle was barren, the snow around it untouched, as if the area was sacrosanct, protected by unseen forces. As I approached the boundary, the whispers intensified, pleading, warning, mourning. I couldn't tell. My rational mind urged me to dismiss it as an elaborate hoax or a trick of the wind, but the primal fear rising in my chest told a different story. I reached out to touch one of the stones, and the moment my fingers brushed against the cold surface, the whispers stopped abruptly, replaced by a single, clear voice speaking in Slovak. It said, "Leave and never return." The voice was not threatening, but the finality in its tone was unmistakable. I fled the clearing, the silence of the forest now a pressing weight against my ears. By the time I burst back into the village, the first light of dawn was creeping across the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to watch me with silent accusation. I left Hukvaldi the next day, my research forgotten, replaced by an urgent need to distance myself from the village and its whispered warnings. The experience has haunted me since, a stark reminder of the world's mysteries that lurk in the shadowed places, waiting for the unwary. To this day, I cannot explain what happened in that forest clearing, nor have I dared to delve into the folklore that might unravel the mystery. Some truths, I've learned, are better left undiscovered, hidden in the whispers of the night. I'm Clara, a 31-year-old graphic designer from Lisbon, Portugal. My encounter with the inexplicable occurred during a solo trip across rural Scotland in the late fall of 2020. Seeking inspiration and a break from the routine, I found myself drawn to the rugged landscapes and hauntingly beautiful ruins that Scotland is famed for. What I discovered, however, was something far beyond the realms of natural beauty or historical intrigue. I arrived in a small, seemingly forgotten village on the outskirts of the Highlands, where the autumn mist hung low, cloaking the world in a surreal, otherworldly blanket. The villagers were few, their faces etched with the lines of hard lives and cold winters, eyes flickering with unspoken stories and warnings. My presence, a rare event in such isolation, was met with a cautious hospitality. On the third night of my stay, intrigued by tales of ancient ruins hidden within the nearby woods, said to be the remnants of an old clan long since vanished, I ventured out under the guise of the setting sun. camera in hand, eager to capture the haunting beauty I was told awaited me. The forest path, barely more than a worn trail through towering pines and thick underbrush, led me deeper into the silence of the woods. A silence so profound it seemed to swallow even the sound of my own footsteps. As twilight deepened, I found the ruins, a collection of stone walls and arches cloaked in ivy and moss, the air around them heavy with the scent of decay and forgotten histories. The atmosphere was charged, electric, as if the very stones were alive with the echoes of the past. I began to take photos, lost in the beauty of decay, when a sudden chill swept through the air, cutting through the fabric of the mild evening like a knife. I heard it then, a whisper, so faint I thought it the rustle of leaves. But as I stilled, holding my breath, it came again, clearer this time, a whisper in the wind, calling my name. Clara, Clara, in a voice that seemed neither male nor female, but filled with an indescribable longing and sorrow. Panic, sharp and sudden, gripped me as the realization dawned that I was not alone. My camera, once a source of comfort, felt useless in my hands as I turned, searching the shadows for the source of the voice. But there was nothing, only the pressing darkness and the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. The whisper came again, closer, a mournful lament that seemed to seep from the very stones of the ruins. I ran, the rational part of my mind overtaken by an instinctive fear, the voice following me, always just behind, until I burst from the tree line and into the relative safety of the village. I left the next morning, my quest for inspiration replaced by a deep, unshakable unease. The photos I took that evening, when I finally had the courage to review them, revealed nothing but the ruins, bathed in the last light of the setting sun. But to this day, when the night is quiet and the wind whispers through the trees, I hear it, my name, carried on the breeze, a reminder of the unseen world that lies just beyond the veil of our understanding, waiting in the ancient shadowed places of Europe. In the spring of 2018, my life took a turn into the pages of a story I would have never dared to write. My name is Adrian, a then 35-year-old travel blogger from Cluj-Napoca, Romania, specializing in exploring and documenting Europe's most secluded and mysterious destinations. My journey into the inexplicable began with an invitation to a little-known village nestled in the Carpathian Mountains, a place steeped in folklore and whispered to be untouched by time. The village, known as Viskri, was renowned for its medieval architecture and the dense, enveloping forests that seemed to guard it from the modern world. As a man of science and reason, I approached the tales of supernatural occurrences and ancient curses with a healthy dose of skepticism. Yet, the historian in me was fascinated by the thought of a community living in the shadow of legends, their lives intertwined with stories passed down through generations. My arrival in Viskri was met with a mix of curiosity and reserved welcome. The villagers were hospitable, yet their eyes held stories they seemed reluctant to share with an outsider. It was only after several days of gaining their trust that I was told about the Noatea albastra, or blue night, a phenomenon that occurred once a year, where the forest was said to come alive with an eerie indigo glow, and the veil between worlds grew thin. Intrigued and sensing an incredible story, I decided to venture into the forest on the night of the blue night, equipped with my camera and a skeptical yet open mind. The forest's edge was marked by ancient, gnarled trees that seemed to watch me enter their domain. As the sun set, a surreal, blue luminescence began to permeate the woods, casting everything in a spectral light that defied logical explanation. The deeper I ventured, the more the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and the silence was punctuated by sounds that didn't belong in a forest at night. Whisperings filled the air, unintelligible and yet distinctly human in their cadence. Shadows moved at the corner of my vision, flitting between trees with an unnatural grace. Attempting to capture this phenomenon on camera proved futile. The images showed only the darkness of the forest, the blue glow, and the mist that seemed to dance in the light. But as I reviewed the photos, a chill ran down my spine. In every image, there was a figure standing in the distance, barely discernible, yet unmistakably human in shape. Its eyes reflecting the blue light with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the lens. Feeling a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread, I realized I was no longer alone. The forest around me was alive with whispers, and the figure from the photos was now standing at the edge of my vision, its gaze locked on mine. I ran, guided by the primal instinct to flee from something wholly otherworldly. I emerged from the forest just as dawn began to break, the blue night retreating before the light of day. I left Viscri with more questions than answers, my skepticism replaced by a deep, unsettling certainty that some legends are rooted in truths too ancient and mysterious for us to understand. The experience changed the course of my travels, instilling in me a reverence for the mysteries that dwell in the shadowed places of Europe, where history and legend blur, and the unknown awaits those brave or foolish enough to seek it out. And there we have it, folks. Our journey through the shadows and into the chilling depths of human nature has come to an end. I hope these tales have sent shivers down your spine, made you glance over your shoulder, or even question the ordinary moments of your daily lives. If you've enjoyed this exploration into the darker side of the human psyche, please don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more than you know. You can always share your thoughts, feelings, or even your own creepy experiences in the comments below. We love hearing from our listeners. And if you're new here or haven't yet joined our Horror Stories family, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our future tales of the macabre and mysterious. Until next time, stay safe, keep the lights on, and remember, the real monsters might be closer than you think.